The lady with long hair is one of the most remarkable mummies ever discovered at Huacahualamarca, an ancient burial site in Lima, Peru. This well-preserved mummy dating back to around 200 BC offers an extraordinary glimpse into the past, particularly to the woman's long hair, which remains intact. Believed to have been about 23 years old at the time of her death, the woman is thought to have been a royal or high social status, possibly a princess. The discovery of the mummy suggests that she may have been buried alive, a practice associated with elite figures in a certain ancient Peruvian cultures. Her delicate hands and the meticulous care in her burial further indicate that she belonged to a high-ranking group. The preservation of her body and the intricate rituals surrounding her burial highlight her significant role within her society. Found in the San Isidro district of Lima, the lady with long hair has become one of the most significant archaeological finds in the region. Huacahualamarca, a pre-Columbian mound, continues to provide valuable insights into the Lima culture and its complex social and religious practices. These mummies serve as an invaluable window into the lives of elite individuals from ancient Peru, enriching our understanding of the past. Strong archaeological evidence from various ancient civilizations in Peru in pre-Inca period indicates the practice of human sacrifice as a part of religious rituals to appease the gods or maintain cosmic order, although the focus was more often on the general public rather than just the elite, with finds at the sites such as Cajamarquilla indicating mass sacrifices of children and adults as a part of important rituals. In ancient Peru, ritual sacrifice began with careful selection. The chosen person was often a child, a war captive, or a servant connected to elite society. Selection was based on spiritual purity, physical health, and ritual timing. Once chosen, the individual was prepared for weeks or even months, and they were fined ceremonial clothing, followed a special diet, and underwent purification rituals. Rather than being treated as criminals, they were honored and their family often received gifts or increased social status. The sacrifice took place at a sacred location such as mountaintop, temple, or royal tomb. The chosen individual was led in a ceremonial procession with priests, nobles, and musicians. Before the ritual, they were often given chicha or coca leaves to calm them and place them in a trance-like state. The method of sacrifice varied by culture and purpose. Some were buried alive, others strangled or killed by blunt force. In Inca highland rituals, death often occurred quietly due to cold and lack of oxygen. After the death, the body was carefully positioned and buried with offerings such as textiles, figurines, and food. The burial site was sealed and treated as sacred. The sacrificed person was believed to become a messenger to the gods, protecting the community and restoring balance between humans and nature. These rituals were acts of devotion, not cruelty, reflecting a worldwide in which sacrifice ensured survival, fertility, and harmony with the divine. The last confirmed ritual human sacrifices in Peru took place in the late 1400s and very early 1500s during the final decades of the Inca Empire. Archaeological discoveries of frozen child mummies on Andean mountains show that many of these rituals occurred shortly before Spanish contact. In 1532, the Spanish arrived and captured the Inca ruler Atahualpa, beginning the collapse of the Inca state. With the destruction of Inca political power and the rapid spread of Christianity, ritual human sacrifice was officially banned and actively suppressed. Spanish chronicles condemned these practices and colonial authorities punished communities that attempt to continue them. While violence and execution still occurred during conquest and colonial rule, there were no longer religious sacrifices carried out to honor indigenous gods. There is no reliable archaeological or historical evidence that organized ritual human sacrifice continued in Peru after Spanish control was firmly established, marking the early 16th century as the true end of this ancient practice. Any kind of sacrifice rituals in modern days is not appropriate with human rights. What actually would happen to the child as the massive victims in Inca's ritual, and how were they selected, and what's the specific things the empire looking at the children? How is the ritual performed actually? When I deep dive into the history, I found something that was both scary and pitiful. The Incas practiced ritual child sacrifice as a part of significant ceremony known as Capachoca. The burial sites are primarily located on high mountain peaks and volcanoes throughout Andes Mountains, where the cold, dry condition naturally mummified the victims. The Incas were a people with a truly impressive culture. From 1400s to 1532, they created a vast empire spanning from modern-day Ecuador to central Chile. Master builders rivaling the ancient Egyptians, the Incas' impressive temple still stand today. The Incas had numerous rituals and ceremonies dedicated to their gods, many religious ceremonies centered on sacrifice. One particularly chilling practice is Capachoca. The Capachoca ceremony was a central part of the Inca religion. It was a ritual sacrifice of carefully selected children from throughout the Inca Empire. There were several situations in which a Capachoca might occur, such as an important event in the life of the Sapa Inca, the Inca Emperor. For example, a Capachoca would be held if the emperor was ill, died, or had a son. At other times, a Capachoca might be held to prevent or halt a natural disaster. The actual sacrifice usually took place at important sacred sites known as huacas on mountaintops. How were children sacrificed? Children died of exposure after being exposed to the cold or died in their sleep after being drugged. There is also evidence that some children died of strangulation or asphyxiation after being buried alive. For the Incas, being a sacrifice wasn't a punishment. Instead, children were carefully selected. It's thought the Incas believed they were sending the best to join the gods. The Capachoca sacrifice typically began in Cusco on the orders of Sapa Inca. The tradition dates back to Pachacuti 1418 to 1472, the first emperor to order sacrifices. Capachoca began with a festival where it was decided which temple would receive which offerings. Temples would receive varying amounts of offerings, each with varying quality. Throughout the festival in Cusco, it was crucial that the children be well cared for. Besides being adorned with royal finery, they were pampered and well fed. Inca tradition, children should be in a state of joy when meeting the gods. Once ready, the children are paired off, boys and girls. They are dressed in a beautiful royal attire. They are then paraded around statues of the Creator, the Sun God, the Moon God, and the Thunder God. At the end of the procession, the priest divided the children and the other sacrifices into 4 groups, one for each suyu or region of the entire Inca Empire, the Tawantinsuyu. The next step was to send the children and priests back to their communities. This was no easy journey. On the way to Cusco, they were permitted to use the Royal Road or Inca Road. On the return journey, they were forbidden to use that road. Instead, to reach their communities, they had to travel as the crow flies in a straight line. This was most likely done by following the Sikh line, a series of ritual paths radiating out from Cusco to various Wak Akuna temples. This was a long and arduous journey involving crossing dangerous valleys, rivers, and mountains. For the most inaccessible Wak Akuna, the journey could take months. The Incas believed that children should die happy, so they drugged them, and historians initially believed the Incas used coca leaves and a corn beer called chicha to intoxicate the children. However, today it's believed the Incas used something a little more interesting, ayahuasca. It's a powerful drug with hallucinogenic properties. Archaeological evidence suggests that the Incas' predecessors, the Huari, used the drug. However, no evidence has been found of its use in Capachoca. And it's the most terrifying part in the story, time for execution. After the children were properly dosed with coca leaves and ayahuasca, it was time for the sacrifice. If the children were lucky, the Capachoca ceremony would be held at a very high, cold altitude. In these cases, the children who were dosed would fall into a deep sleep and die of hypothermia. They never felt anything. In Lulailako, 3 bodies of 3 children have been found so far. These also appear to have died relatively peacefully. 2 are believed to have died in their sleep and 1 died of asphyxiation. In other cases, the methods of sacrifice were slightly more brutal. At different sites, different methods have been discovered. A child found on the summit of Aconcagua was killed by a single crushing blow to the head. Another mummy known as the Queen of the Hill was found with a stab wound to her chest that entered through her back, a quick but not painless death. But how to select children to be sacrificed? The selection process is somewhat similar to the method in the Hunger Games. Children of both sexes are given to the kingdom as a tribute by the local community each year. Every region in the kingdom, no matter how small, is required to make a sacrifice. Boys are always prepubescent, no older than 10, and girls can be up to 16, but must be virgin. Children must be perfect specimens without spots or scar. Simply put, children must be beautiful. Only the purest children were worthy of being sent to live with the gods. In modern times, such sacrifices sound horrific, sadistic, and inhuman. However, among the Incas, most families considered it a great honor. Noble families often sought to have their children selected as a way to win the emperor's favor. The process for boys and girls was slightly different. Once selected, boys were sent directly to the Inca capital, Cusco. Girls or Akla or chosen women were first sent to the Aklawasi house of chosen women. There they meet the Mamakuna, a group of matriarchs similar to nuns. The girls were taught by priestesses in the arts of weaving, sewing, and preparing a special spiritual drink called chicha. Around the age of 14, the girls were divided into 3 groups. The lucky ones were kept and ordained as priestesses who would continue the tradition. A second group, usually the most beautiful, were sent to be sacrificed at the said Capachoca ceremony. And the third group was sent to the emperor in Cusco to act as servants or concubines, or were divided among Cusco nobility as second wives. The lack of written records from the Inca makes it difficult for historians to understand their culture. So how do we know so much about Capachoca? The best description we have of Capachoca comes from Cristobal de Molina, a Spanish chronicler who spent most of his adult life in Cusco. He notes that Capachoca was often associated with the ascension of a new emperor. Molina describes how all the cities within the empire were summoned to send young girls and boys to the capital. At the same time, poles of fine cloth and statues made of precious metals were also set. The idea of child sacrifice is almost impossible for modern people to fathom. How could loving parents send their children to die in such a horrific manner? What were they really thinking? Before judging too harshly, it's worth remembering that for the Incas, having a child chosen as a sacrifice was a supreme honor. People would commemorate their children after their deaths. Rather than being considered child killers, children were sent to serve the gods in the afterlife. For them, being sacrificed was a blessing. It should also be remembered that the death of children was seen as inevitable. The Incas believed that their gods would rain down natural disasters such as floods, earthquakes, and famine if they did not receive regular sacrifices. Historical records leave us with lingering questions regarding the personal experiences of the youth chosen for sacrifice. It remains unclear whether these individuals participated with unwavering devotion or if there were instances of internal resistance. Furthermore, one must consider the emotional toll on the families. Did every parent view this as a sacred honor, or did some harbor profound regret? I hope you found this exploration informative and engaging. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this video with others. Your support is invaluable. A single click significantly aids the growth of the channel and provides more motivation to bring you even more high-quality episodes. Thanks for watching.